And a very good morning to you. Welcome along to Thursday morning's OTB AM. We're here with you all the way until 9:30 this morning. We're going to be talking rugby, our brand new slot with Neil Treacy called the Type 5. 5 quick talking points from the week's rugby, looking back and looking forward. We're going to speak with Daniel Harris about the racist English fans who aren't just hooligans anymore. They're now racist English hooligans who are supporting the England football team around the world, and also a little bit about that Saudi Arabian takeover of Manchester United, which may or may not be a story depending on who your sources are.
Yeah, the sources are quite interesting on that Manchester United Saudi Arabia story. Marina Hyde in The Guardian says, what's the exact term I have written down here, just without... the Saudi Arabia are in the news for all the wrong reasons, is how she describes the situation involving that journalist, which is probably as good a way of putting it as anybody. So they're in the news for all the right reasons, being attached to Manchester United, of course.
Yeah, so she's saying the whole story is complete bollocks, right? But, is it? I mean, is somebody out there not trying to, look at this nice distraction over here, ignore the situation in Yemen, which, the death of an individual journalist is obviously pretty horrific in the circumstances of it, but also the greatest famine in 100 years. Also,
the biggest blind eye being turned to it.
And they're completely responsible for it, so.
I think it's quite... It's almost like putting 2 and 2 together and getting a 5 is my read of it. That the UK Star's exclusive, I'm not sure that they labelled it as such, but they certainly had the story first, wasn't stacked up too well. It was a couple of Twitter accounts who aren't necessarily trustworthy Twitter accounts. They might be, but it doesn't seem at the outset, given the number of followers and things like that they would be great sources. But you can add that to the idea that the Glazers have a bit of a presence in Saudi Arabia.
Man United do.
And Manchester United do. So perhaps this will end up being a true story eventually. Say if somebody said last summer, exclusive, Eden Hazard will join Real Madrid. They might be right eventually if he joins next summer, but they weren't right at the time. That might be the situation here with the Saudi takeover at Manchester United.
But if you're Saudi Arabia, are you pissed off about the fact that you're suddenly being linked with the biggest football club in the world and the takeover of it, and seeing what if that kite gets flown somewhere out there, how do you feel about that?
Absolutely chuffed.
And so if you have if you're literally printing money on a daily basis, is it possible that you can engineer some of this stuff to, don't we now know a little bit about how the world works?
Well, that's a very good point.
So you can debunk it all you want by saying, this is all bollocks from these two, but the aggregation of the story and how it rolls from the Star through to all the way to John Simpson apparently was commenting on this, like the BBC's didn't he liberate Basra or wherever it was he liberated, that activity and how the media works is something that you have to assume the people who are managing the reputation of the Saudi Arabian royal family
can have some influence.
Understand 100%.
Yeah.
What's going on over here? Little marionettes.
Well, the thing is, they're obviously richer than Qatar, they're richer than the United Arab Emirates. So if they're able to, become probably the most... They would have more wealth than Manchester City and PSG, basically. If they're able to outspend them, then they can probably afford to twist the arm of some sort of news cycle.
A few bloggers.
And a few bloggers. And be able to kind of influence how we're talking about it. Or else it might be just totally incidental and made up, but who knows? Time will tell.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of stuff that is incidental and made up hits the newspapers all the time.
And what the Saudis read the Star and it's like, that's a good idea.
I don't know. I would be more cynical about the manufacture of news stories, particularly when it comes to the takeover. So Marina Hyde's piece is the share price went up 5% on the back of a few random tweets. Fair enough. I mean, the stock market moves all the time on bullshit, all the time. But I just wonder, if this was as coincidental or as accidental as Marina Hyde is suggesting that maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe it is a complete fluke that these stories happened at the same time. But history teaches you to be a little bit suspicious of coincidences when they happen. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's how does the media work?
It's true, but it's also fair to say that you can't but be amused by some of the detail in how this story is broken. Marina Hyde goes into great detail how the top source for the Daily Star report was at Daniel_K23. I'm not sure do you follow this particular individual, but he's got 253 Twitter followers, and he declared, "I'm hearing #MUFC reps met with Arabs to potentially buy us. Could be huge." But where was at Daniel K23 23 hearing this. So Marina says that his preceding retweet from a Spanish part-time freelance journalist called Diego Martinez is where he heard it. Martinez then the next day was using that very Daily Star report to legitimise what he was saying, and he tweeted, "Told you." And then meanwhile, at Daniel_K was theorising the potential impact of the investment, saying, if we get the Arabs, it's over, because BECUZ, their spend in block caps, which is kind of true.
I mean,
it's not over, but their spend is certainly worthy of block caps.
There's a lot of other stuff that we need to talk about, right? The weaker counties, so-called weaker counties, Division 3 and 4, are now being rebranded as Tier 2. Yeah. So it's a Tier 2 competition that has been suggested by the good people of Wicklow, who are saying that there was a meeting of, actually I forget who the meeting was of, but anyway, it was whatever initial group were like, they're all unanimous about the fact that they're going to have a look at an investigation into, perhaps form a committee to think about the potential at some point, maybe in the future, of having a Tier 2 competition that runs in parallel to the Tier 1 competition. Now, what this would mean for the Tier 1 competition, i.e. the All-Ireland Championships in football, would be that if you're a Division 3 and Division 4 team, you don't get into the qualifiers after you get knocked out of the Provincial Championship. Instead, you go into this Tier 2 pot, which is a parallel All-Ireland Championship, which will be played on the biggest stage and the biggest games, you know, as a curtain raiser.
The jazz fan suggests that you're not totally behind this.
As a curtain raiser to, say, I don't know, Roscommon versus... Who did Roscommon play in Croker this year?
Dublin. And then they had 2 games in Croke Park, didn't they? Because they had to play Dublin away and they played Tyrone there as well.
Tyrone. Okay, so imagine a heaving Croke Park for Roscommon Tyrone, and the precursor to that, to give them their big day out, is Leitrim against Wexford football. It's like, this is a competition we can all get behind, right?
It would certainly get behind that more than a number of other fixtures that might not happen, or that might happen down the line in the qualifiers. The thing about it, the key component of...
Sorry, did I miss any of the details? You go on.
I'm sure, you remember it. Like, the key component is the fact that all counties will be in the race for Sam Maguire at the start of the year, which has been a sticking point for some of these counties. In my view, that sticking point has actually been the barrier to any progress in any meaningful championship structure. So everybody will enter the run for Sam Maguire. If you don't make your provincial final as a Tier 2 county, aka Division 3, Division 4 team, you're going to get relegated to Division 2, Tier 2 I should say, and compete in that championship for the rest of the year. The semi-finals and the final are proposed from Wicklow to take place on the same day as the senior Tier 1 semi-finals and final. And to be honest with you, if there was another semi-final on the same day as Monaghan Tyrone this year, you would have probably got over 50,000 people into Croke Park. So the fact that the Tier 1 championship is doing and is holding up the light of the football championship on its own and doing sensational work is probably not true at the moment.
What do you mean, sorry, if there had been another semi-final?
Well, like you mentioned there, that the idea of Wicklow or Wexford versus Leitrim as a curtain raiser, at least it's a meaningful game that might pump up the attendance beyond 50,000 at an All-Ireland semi-final.
And how is it meaningful?
Because they're competing for a Tier 2 All-Ireland Championship. They're playing teams of their own standard. They've got a summer to actually play a few games. This, to be honest with you, will actually be kind of a stepping stone, I'd imagine, to a lot of counties making that next step forward. They've actually certainly beats the hopelessness of getting knocked out in the middle of June.
Well, let's talk a bit more about this in the papers. We'll bring you through some of the details. Here's what's coming up on the show. The Tide 5 with Neil Treacy sometime around 9 o'clock this morning. We'll talk about the new proposals around this Gaelic Football Tier 2 Championship around about 8:45. Sports news with Darren Cleary coming your way at 8:35. Daniel Harris coming up at about 8:10. And, well, it's already 7:54, so we're 4 minutes late. Here's the morning newspapers.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie. Championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
Okay, so back page of the Irish Independent this morning is leading with getting rid of O'Neill will cost £3 million. Defiant manager says FAI have no need to change and promises Ireland will qualify for Euro 2020 because I'm good.
Yeah, that €3 million figure has been doing the rounds now for a couple of weeks at this stage. So I think that's the main reason why we've been having this conversation yesterday as to who will replace Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane as a very hypothetical thing. And hypothetical is
you made the excellent point yesterday. This £3 million they're not getting back no matter what happens. So if we don't qualify, that £3 million is wasted. It's a sunk cost. All you've got to do is go, right, I can have this £3 million and not qualify. I can not have this 3 million and not qualify, or I can spend another million and get a new team in and this 3 million and potentially qualify. Which of these options is your option? Door number 1, lose the money and not qualify. Door number 2, lose the money and not qualify. Door number 3, lose the money and a bit more and maybe give yourself a chance of qualifying. Which is it?
Well, according to what we're seeing from Martin O'Neill, door 3 is actually door number 1 in that case, because we will qualify. He is good, he says. Absolutely is what he says in terms of qualification for Euro 2020. Fear not, Martin O'Neill is here.
Look, he's come out fighting, in fairness. So this is the written press conference after the digital and radio press conference from the post-match the other night, and they hold it until today's Thursday. So yeah, okay.
Thursday and Sunday.
And he's basically come out fighting and said, look, I'm still a good manager. I've been a good manager all my life. I've had setbacks and I've always come through them. And like, his track record is pretty good. Except the last job, the Sunderland job. But then that chairman didn't seem to be very good. That kind of seemed to be more... And also the rest of everybody else at Sunderland has also failed. So it's hard to judge him by that. But I don't know. I mean, I'm glad he's coming out fighting because you would want him to be defiant. He says that there's been no chats with Delaney and no chats, pardon me, with the board. So
it seems Martin O'Neill is always fairly defiant when it comes to protecting his own reputation. You dare not suggest that Martin O'Neill doesn't come from a very good pedigree in terms of his managerial stock, in terms of who he's learned under, aka Brian Clough back in the day. You daren't suggest that he hasn't done a good job with Ireland. He will tell you that he's overachieved with his Ireland team in the past.
Because we're not very good.
You suggest, though, that his players aren't great and he'll happily let you take a swing at them. He won't be defiant in the face of defending his players, will he? The Martin O'Neill reputation certainly is more important than the player's reputation, and that's fair enough. If I was manager, I want to defend my reputation more than some other guys that I don't particularly see too often. But I just find it to be kind of an odd double standard. But taking this in isolation, I am happy that the Republic of Ireland manager is coming out swinging. Like, it would be worse if he was laying down. It is just sort of a different approach to how he approaches any questions about the standard of his squad.
Yeah, Vincent Hogan has the headline on his piece today is O'Neill safe because it would be too expensive to sack him. I mean, that comes back to the whole point that you were making yesterday, and just to repeat it, that maybe not sacking him is more expensive, in that you don't get any money if we don't qualify for the Euros. And then just to round out this story from the Irish Times, Emma Malone's piece is Delaney's dilemma: is it the manager or is it the players? And the truth is, we don't know, because we don't know how well this group of players would do under a different manager.
Yeah, without question. I think we do know that this group of players is not our best bunch of players that we've had. I would say that it's probably our worst squad this century. Our worst squad, maybe since the midnight. I would say you'd have to go back to pre-88 for a worst squad. But is it our worst squad in 30, 35 years? There's every chance it is, just in terms of looking at top-level talent. But then you look at the globalisation of what's happening in England, and that judge of saying that it's the worst squad we've had in 35 years is based solely on the fact of their club form. You go back 30, 35 years and the way we view English football and the way English football was penetrated from nationalities all around the world is vastly different. So maybe that's a tad unfair. But certainly the questions have to be asked of how strong is this squad. But similarly, there are tons of questions to be asked of this management, especially given how much they're earning. The
point that Emmet goes on to make in his piece today is if O'Neill is the right man, however, the quality of the players comes into sharper focus. And whose responsibility is that? Well, that's John Delaney, as the chief executive of the FAI. Who's responsible for the quality, the overall quality of football in the country? It is the FAI. It's their job to build up the coaching structures, make sure the pathway is there, make sure the league, the domestic league, is a strong product that actually is a proper stepping stone for hothousing new young managerial talent, and also for rescuing people who might have failed in England and need to make a comeback, or for just giving people the opportunity to showcase their talents before they go off somewhere else. Need not necessarily obviously be England, but it always is in our case. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see exactly what happens over the next while. And once if the blame focus shifts from O'Neill to the FAI, how much patience is there then in the FAI to take the opprobrium from the fans, the media, and the football public?
Plenty, I would say.
How much appetite there is for them?
Not appetite to take criticism, but patience, aka stubbornness.
But if they're taking criticism, if they're the ones who are the focus of the criticism...
Has the FAI not been levelled with criticism for 10, 15 years now at this stage? Has John Delaney not always been the person that is like, all right, we've written all our column inches on the players, we've written all our column inches on the manager, now it's time to focus on John Delaney? Has he not withstood that time and time again. Like, what makes this any different? Is this going to be more vociferous?
The football public, I think, is the grassroots.
Okay.
It's if the grassroots decides.
An insurgence almost.
Well, if the narrative is not we don't have the players, but the FAI have prevented. Do you know that if the narrative shifts from we're not producing the players to why aren't we producing the players? Oh, the systems are all wrong. Like if that's what the narrative becomes, then that becomes the focus, and then the FAI board. So Gary Doyle's piece is pretty stark in the Times Ireland edition, where he's saying sack the board. Like tough luck, you've done your service, but I think certainly it's an unusually, the age profile of that board is unusually high. Let me put it that way. To be
who makes that call? Who gets rid of the board?
Well, they could.
Delaney.
They could resign. Delaney could do it, but
What are the chances of them resigning?
Zero, and sure, he's not going to sack them either because they elect him.
So I would then say, what's the next step then? Is like there's no kind of potential for some sort of independent body to come in and make some whole sweeping changes. I would say that nothing is going to change. We'll get to the end of the 2020 qualification period. We won't qualify. Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane's contract will be up. They'll shake their hands, they'll say goodbye, they'll walk off into the sunset, we'll appoint a new manager, and we'll move on to the next thing. The League of Ireland, under the current regime, is not going to make any step forward. In terms of youth development, as a result of that, it's not going to make any step forward. We might get lucky with a couple of generational talents, and everybody's face will be saved. But basically, we've stagnated, and we are probably still dwindling to a point of no return.
To move on to the rugby in the Irish Times today, Sports Thursday, there's a bit of nostalgia about the miracle match from the old Munster team, and then McCarthy to join Munster as Murray understudy. Once again, Leinster providing the backbone of Munster's future. Nick McCarthy is expected to join Munster next season. The 23-year-old scrum half would follow the career path of Joey Carberry and Andrew Conway by leaving Leinster to further his career prospects. It's unclear if Conor Murray's current understudies, Duncan Williams, who produced a career performance in Exeter last weekend, and James Hart will be retained. So the draft isn't kind of quite there just yet, but you can see the green shoots of our draft system.
Yeah, well, Leinster do have about 100 top quality scrum halves at this stage when everybody comes through next season. It makes sense from an IRFU perspective, doesn't it? Having that talent in Munster. Like, you would feel a bit sorry for Duncan Williams after his performance at the weekend. He is getting on a bit, I suppose.
It's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. Like, Albie Mathewson is gone in January is the thing. So James Hart might have to play a lot of minutes going into the new calendar year.
I'm good. I'll win. We'll qualify is the darkened picture of... you can actually see it better on on our PDF there. So there's the microphones, the uplighting, kind of slightly film noirish picture of Martin O'Neill on the front cover of the Examiner. The Examiner front page, they're always brilliant. I'm good. I'll win. We'll qualify. Yeah, good man, Martin. That's exactly what we want. I mean, that's the look. And I just want to jump forward to this story. Kerry lose Starlight O'Cumber to AFL's Cats. So Stephen O'Cumber, who was like one of the standout young footballers in the entire country, not just Kerry, is off obviously to join Geelong Cats. Geelong, isn't it? Geelong, on a 2-year rookie contract. What are you doing, Kerry? How can you let this happen?
I know. The next fullback, Kerry haven't had someone of that potential in that position.
There he is with Jack. He's got number 7 on there, but really, he was seen as the future fullback, right?
Yeah, well,
a proper Seamus Moynihan successor, a ball player, but also somebody who can crush you if you need to.
I'm not sure when that photograph was taken. I wonder, was that
with the
minors a few years back? Because with one of those minor teams, he used to come on as a sub and make massive impacts on their way to winning one of the All-Ireland titles, and then he kind of developed a bit further, got into a starting position. He's a midfielder for his club. And then Jack O'Connor put him in at fullback. Won Munster Under 20 Player of the Year, was outstanding. And there was rumours last year around the time that David Clifford that O'Connor had gone to a combine outside of Ireland to actually try out for an AFL team. And when we heard nothing more of it, we kind of heard that David Clifford was staying, and then we automatically put 2 and 2 together and said, well, O'Connor is staying as well. Not the case. The
same combine, apparently, as Killian McDade has just returned home without playing the game. So, I mean, it's not a done deal that you go and you automatically are a success, but,
his development is out of Kerry's hands now.
Yeah. Like, they obviously made a huge play to keep David Clifford. Now, I don't know if Clifford has the athletic profile of your stereotypical AFL player. I don't know. Like, is he as fast and as strong as you need to be? I don't know. So maybe it was easier to keep him because it was less. There was maybe fewer concrete offers on the table. Maybe not. Maybe the AFL are like, Yeah, of course we'll have you. Look what you can do. Look at how you create space, and look at your movement, and look at your ball skills generally. I don't know, but surely there's something that Kerry can do to say, go to college, here's your career path, get these work experience opportunities, be a semi-professional full-time athlete the way a lot of people are at this stage. No,
you'd like to think so. Like, he's obviously from Tralee Cunbar, and there will be a good relationship between the IT there and the county board to set something up for him if he wanted to go to college. But maybe that just wasn't the case. When you talk about providing opportunities and providing like work, I guess, and just kind of a future for Cunbar and Kerry, like, it's very, very. What can you create for somebody in this country that's going to outdo a professional lifestyle in Australia for 2 years? Like, that's probably all he's looking at. It's like, I've got a 2-year contract down here. Doesn't always work out for people. In a lot of cases, they've got no hope of making it after the 2 years. But I'm going to go down. I'm still a young guy. Have my 2 years, experience the whole professional lifestyle, and come back and hopefully make the Kerry team when I come back. So I can completely accept it on his own personal level. I don't know, to be quite honest with you, if there was an effort to keep him or not, and if questions should be asked in that regard. But I would say it's just one of those cases where Kerry were fairly powerless to keep him, because, but like, I do wonder, when you mentioned David Clifford there, I wonder, was David Clifford's chance of joining the AFL hampered by how skillful he is? Where they look at a guy who's like, I can't actually see what sort of an athlete this guy is, because he's just kicking the ball over the bar from all sorts of angles. Whereas a Cunbar playing at full back is just kind of bursting out of defence with the ball, and the athletic abilities of Cunbar are kind of more noticeable in that position because he's not kicking points.
Maybe.
I don't know. That's like a one-dimensional view.
No, I like, so when you think about Clifford's outstanding single moment over the last couple of years, it's probably the goal. I mean, it's any one of the number of highlight reel goals that he had before he actually played a senior game at Croke Park, but the goal against Monaghan, not the type of skill set that you would expect the AFL are like, ooh, well, look, he can definitely find the inside corner there he can thread the ball through the eye of a needle. They're like,
how big are his biceps?
I want force. Yeah. So there you go. Very quickly, for me, the Times Ireland edition, O'Neill will win because I'm still good. It's never a great sign, is it? Oh yeah, also Wembley no longer being sold to Shad Khan. I mean, that means no NFL team in London. What the hell are you doing there? Anyway, it's unfortunate.
I think the football writers in London are rejoicing at the moment.
Well, Henry Winter's devastated.
Is he?
A shameful betrayal of the nation's children.
I thought everybody was against the idea of Khan coming in to buy Wembley.
I think they changed their mind. I think it was a mixed, no?
What happened to change their mind?
The fact that the money was going straight to
grassroots.
Yeah,
right.
And that it was still going to be the home of England football games. So whenever they wanted it, they would get it, and they would get 600 million quid.
I presume is there a good dollop of debt still on the new Wembley at the moment that the FA are shouldering?
I thought they'd got rid of it. I thought that was the...
Well, still, if you've got £670 million to pump into grassroots development, then you're going to take that, obviously. I thought there was just a little bit more discontent about the whole thing.
Very quickly, I've already asked you this question, so you know the answer to it, but pretend you don't. How many full championship matches has Cormac Costello played in his entire career? He's the same age now as Kevin McManaman was when he scored that goal in 2011 against Kerry.
I have no idea what that goal was.
He's 24. How many full championship matches do you think he's played?
Well, I don't know.
You guessed 20 earlier.
Well, you didn't. You said how many games has he finished?
The answer is 0. He hasn't started and finished. He has started and finished 0 games.
That is an incredible statistic.
Like, I mean,
it's not overly surprising, but you would have thought that there would have been.
How many do you think he started in 6 seasons?
That's good. I'd say a dozen.
2.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is incredible for one of the most talented players, young players that they've got in their squad. But I would have thought that maybe there was like a lot of Leinster Championship games in there that just completely passed the mind.
How does Irish football get out of the mess? Is Gary Doyle's quick 5 points, sack the board, number 1, 2, change the manager, number 2, copy rugby's model, number 3, and establish elite academies as number 4. He's only got a 4-point plan, but all of those 4 points worth your time today. So we'll get to the tabloids.
Yeah, let's.
So I'll be shouting Irish news, do the Irish news. So we'll do the Irish news really quickly. Here you go. Lynch likely to follow Derry duo in calling time on County. And Darren Royal Racecourse to close at the end of the year. Massive dispute about the future of Darren Royal Racecourse. We'll try and get to that on Friday Night Racing properly on tomorrow's show. So instead of doing the tabloids now, we'll do them a little bit later on for you. But Keith Andrews here talking about a disastrous 12 months for Irish football. Have a look.
It's a build-up, Joe. I said last night, it's been a disastrous 12 months, and it has been.
Yeah.
Results, the manner of them, the manner of the performances, not knowing what we're getting from game to game. Obviously, the off-field problems that we've had with Roy Keane and the Walters and Harry Arthur not turning up. Declan Rice, how much they can control that situation, I'm not entirely sure. But it has been a circus, and obviously the results haven't been good enough. And I'm going to games, you don't know what you're going to get game to game, and I think it's the same for the players. I really do. They don't know what system, what shape, what the expectation levels are. We're 5 years into his reign next month, and you compare that to Ryan Giggs, who's been in the job since January, and you can tell exactly what they're trying to do. And look, last night, the argument Martin always makes is about the level of player. And look, some of these Welsh players, I firmly believe, will go on to bigger and better things. But at the moment, 3 of them are playing in the Premier League of the starting 11. Let's not forget who they were missing from last month. Four of the starting 11, obviously Bale, Ramsey, Ampadu and Mepham, who I do really like, and Mepham as well. Last night they had 3. We had 6 Premier League players. We had a vastly more experienced side, and we still get outdone.
Yeah, outdone, outfought, outthought, outplayed. But we'll win because Martin O'Neill's good. Go on.
Sorry, did you see the Robbie Savage beef with Keith Andrews on Twitter yesterday?
No, I know Keith's not on Twitter, so...
Well, so yeah, it was kind of a one-way bit of beef. Maybe Robbie Savage wasn't aware that Keith Andrews wasn't on Twitter. Basically, on Keith Andrews' comments on Sky Sports on Tuesday night, the Mirror did up an article just printing his quotes, and Robbie Savage quote tweeted it saying, "And who has this guy ever managed?" And it's like,
Don't you make a living from being a pundit, Robbie Savage?
Yeah.
Who did you manage, Robbie Savage?
Well, you've never criticised him. Have you analysed Champions League games?
What does that mean about your entire career? Wow, remind me when he was a manager, says Robbie Savage. What a dumbass.
I think you said it best there. I'm not going to be able to kind of come up with an adjective better than dumbass to describe that. Like it's one thing saying that, but it's another thing saying it from his position as somebody who's well involved in the media and is literally a pundit.
Yeah.
Who criticises managers.
We were chatting earlier about Stephen Cumber and how he's heading off to Australia. It turns out he is actually already in college in Ireland.
Yeah, Digger Form reliably informing me that he's an excellent student apparently in NUI Galway. This I didn't know. I should know. I apologise for my lack of reconnaissance on this one, but yeah, not so much the Kerry board can do in this regard clearly, because he's obviously gone up to start his studies, his third level studies.
See, once they let him out of the kingdom, that was it. He can have his head turned. Those Australian recruiters sending people to Galway, going, here, look, come on. It's raining here. It never rains in Australia. We have a drought.
Just imagine Salt Hill, except everyone's good looking and it's hot.
Exactly.
That's what Australia is.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's talk some football. Daniel Harris is with us this morning. Before we get to all the stuff that we actually phoned you up to talk about, in the meantime, Wayne Rooney has stuck one in from a free kick from DC United from basically the halfway line. This is the type of stuff that Man United could still have if only they hadn't got rid of him 3 seasons ago when he was way past his best.
Yes, I looked at the free kick and sort of wondered what the goalkeeper was doing, because he's not smashed it and it's not gone right in the corner. But I mean, it's a tribute to his level of professionalism, which was something that was sometimes challenged when he was in England. That he's gone to DC United and he's absolutely revolutionised their season. So respect to him for that, because I think a lot of people would have assumed that he would be going and just kind of earning a bit of money, thinking, actually, this is a bit shit, really, that all these players aren't as good as the players that I'm used to playing with. But what he's done is he's turned up and he's clearly too good for that team and too good for that league. And he's not gone about representing that in a haughty way, but actually he's elevating what's around him. And we can only respect that.
Yeah, which is kind of exactly what Robbie Keane did as well. He showed up and probably a little bit earlier on in his career profile than Wayne Rooney was, but maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to tell. They were both obviously teenage prodigies who you kind of thought would just play out the string of the last few years of their careers. But I don't know, maybe there is something in these guys that is still separating them from the average run-of-the-mill Premier League striker who's like, yeah, look, I've made all my money. That there was a desire to play football and a joy in playing football that maybe we didn't fully appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is also just a personal quality of, very basic self-respect. You're going to work, you do your best. And I think there's quite a lot of it is that. In terms of like their footballing ability also, I guess that never leaves you, and they might lose the change of pace that made them particularly good, but all the other things that they had, like Rooney's ability to hit a free kick like that, we'll probably still have that in 10 years' time, never mind right now. And but yeah, as you say, like the desire that they had, they played with a bit of mongrel and a bit of drive that, again, like it's tied up with more than just football. It's tied up with self-respect and doing your best and a work ethic, and you're not going to lose that just because you've lost a bit of pace, I don't suppose.
I want to move on and talk to you about the Saudi Arabia Manchester United story. Marina Hyde today in The Guardian has done a demolition job on the origins of this story, tracing back who the Star credited, I use credited in inverted commas there in case anybody isn't actually watching us, with having talked about the story first on Twitter, and she kind of traces that back along and basically says this is all nothing more than a house of cards. And yet, you're going to have to colour me a little bit sceptical about the fact that this story emerged in precisely the same week that the eyes of the world's press are on Saudi Arabia, finally, over the death of a journalist, but also kind of joining the dots with the famine in Yemen. And I just have enough scepticism about how the world's media works to think that it's not a coincidence the story emerges at the same time.
No, it's not, and I mean there is obviously no evidence for the reality that Saudi Arabia are going to buy out the Glazers, but there's also some circumstantial evidence that suggests that this is something that might happen sometime. In that, United are the biggest, or up there with the biggest football names, franchises, whatever appalling word you want to use to describe a football club in the world, and they're owned by people whose status and wealth is not commensurate with that. The thing is once United became a PLC, all of this stuff became possible. And now that they're owned by the Glazers, at some point the Glazers might decide that a huge sum of money is worth more than a family ATM, which is what United is at the moment, because you get to a certain age and you think, well, can't be asked with the aggravation of whatever they do to run United, which isn't very much, but it's something. And also when you start to be like 50, 60, £4 billion, whatever it would be, is more use to you than £10 million and £10 million and £10 million. So unless there's this desire to keep United in the Glazer family, and given their propensity for falling out with each other and suing each other, I don't know how likely that is, then obviously you would expect at some point that someone really seriously rich who wants the club not for money but for reasons of PR will think, well, actually, I can afford that. So it wouldn't be surprising whether or not there's any evidence. And I suppose it's something that, as a United supporter, but also just as someone that likes football, is something of which I am fit, because, I mean, the Glazers have taken £1 billion out of United. They've hindered United's greatest manager of all time. The team that won the league 3 years in a row and won European Cup could have done so much more if it wasn't for the Glazers. And now United are reaping the rewards of that, where they're seeing City winning things and being the best team around. And despite all of that, selling out to the Saudi royal family would be the worst thing that the Glazers had perpetrated to United. And it's funny because you look at what the Glazers are and what they've done, and you look at what City's owners are and have done, and as a supporter, I would take the Glazers all day, because at least they're just ripping us off. Whereas the owners of City are doing far more nefarious shit on an international, institutional level. And that kind of thing has no place in sport, and its association with sporting clubs has no place in football. And it would be a very dark day if the Glazers sold out to these people.
When you talk about that nefarious stuff, I wonder, is there an appetite to undo that, or to sort of install some measures to try and stop, as you said, a nefarious shit from happening? Because I think that if the Manchester United deal goes through, if this thing is based in fact and the Saudis do get involved with Manchester United, then you've got the UAE, you've got Qatar, and you've got Saudi Arabia, all well represented in top Champions League clubs. It's one of the last bastions, I guess, of hope, if you can call Malcolm Glazer and his family that, left in the United Kingdom and left in European football. And it would be a dark time for the future of football and how it's controlled.
100%. Like, football is about competing at football, at sport. A club is an association of like-minded individuals, not and institution for the soft rivalry, for the soft geopolitical rivalries. And so, I mean, it's really hard to see how we go about getting the game back, because what would need to happen would be you'd need laws that are currently don't exist, but not only that would need to be enforceable, where you'd need, I don't know if you'd need a 50+1 rule, where you need a rule in the league where all clubs are owned 50 shares plus one, 50% of the shares plus one are owned by supporters. Or you say, I don't know what you say, like no nefarious national powers, nations are allowed to own football clubs. I don't know what you would do.
No, a fit and proper persons test like that, because that definitely would work, wouldn't it?
Exactly. So yeah, we've had that. We've seen it doesn't work, and we've seen it doesn't work in all sorts of different cases. Not just at the top. We've seen what happened at Leyton Orient. We've seen what happened at Leeds. We've seen what happened at Manchester City with Thaksin Shinawatra. I mean, we've seen all of these things, and all the game's highest authorities, and not only the game's highest authorities, but the government are culpable in all of this. They did nothing to stop it happening. I mean, I guess the Saudi situation now has escalated because current affairs have overtaken footballing affairs. So how, let's say that the Saudis made an offer for United, how would they go about justifying the fit and proper person test? But we've seen over and over again that when it comes to football, nothing matters apart from money, because unfortunately the people that run football are business people, and their job is to produce healthy balance sheets and healthy profit and loss accounts. And so for them, football exists to make money. It doesn't make money because it exists. And we see it in different forms. We see it at United, where United being a successful football team is not really the main feature here. It's how much money the Glazers can get out. You see it at Tottenham, where football decisions are less important than decisions that enable Daniel Levy to say, look how much money I made, and go and tell Joe Lewis what a good businessman he is. Like, Spurs are a business. And we're seeing now what's going on with the ground, where they cut corners building the ground. The ground isn't ready on time. Everyone knows it's not going to be ready for some time, but they're drip feeding the dates about when it's going to be ready, because otherwise they have to give back supporters all their money all in one go. And who wants that? Because it's not a football club that's owned by its fans, even though they own it morally. It's a football club that's owned by people that want to make money. And you see Woodward talking about people will be amazed at what we can do financially in the transfer market, and United have this many Twitter engagements and stuff. And these things, in theory, shouldn't be relevant, but what Woodward has to do, he doesn't have to show the Glazers about all the trophies that United have won. He needs to show the Glazers how much money he is giving them to take out of United. And all this stuff is underpinned by business people that are running the authorities that have forgotten that this is about football. This is about like-minded people expressing identity, expressing unity through sport and all these things. And so that's why we're in the mess that we're in.
Yeah, on the other side of like-minded people expressing identity through sport, we have the unfortunate scenes from the England fans this week in Seville, where riot police ended up dispersing, what's the crappy name they have for themselves?
The Football Lads Alliance. I think I'm correct in that one, Daniel. Certainly the most admirable of the groups, and the most notorious, I suppose.
In a classic People's Front of Judean People's Front dumpster. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if everyone should read Jack Pitt-Brooks' article on this topic, where what he talks about is how actually this reflects quite a significant element of where UK politics currently are, where people see themselves as superior and separate, and there's a particular, some people are authentic and some people aren't element to this, where there's this whole Pope and IRA song being sung by people that don't remember when the Troubles were a thing, and if they're singing that, they're basically saying that the England football team are a Protestant endeavour. And if you extrapolate from there, if they're excluding Catholics, then who else are they excluding? I mean, basically everyone else, given that Catholics have been in England quite a lot longer than other English people. And I mean, this thing's been going on certainly for as long as I can remember. I mean, I remember as a teenager going to watch England play Romania, and there being Sieg Heiling during the national anthem. And as a Jewish teenager, I thought, well, I'm not coming back to this. And my 2 trips to Wembley subsequently to watch England have been in the away end, watching Israel as a Jew and watching Ghana as a husband to a Ghanaian. Like the England national team certainly have nothing to do with me and don't represent me. And this whole notion, these notions of Englishness and what Englishness represents are a huge amount to do with that. I think that what you're also getting are people whose clubs don't go overseas, using this as an opportunity to go and act up and, in inverted commas, forge reputations overseas, because obviously this is the talk of the European Union at the moment, what Ken from Blackpool is doing in Sevilla. But it's an unfortunate reflection of a little Englander mentality that, as Jack said in this piece, you don't need to watch football to get a handle on this. You just need to put the news on. And it reflects a pretty dark time for our world. I mean, they're trying to stop people. They're trying to stop Muslims who wear head coverings getting jobs in Quebec at the moment. We've seen what's going on in America. There's some terrible stuff that's going on in Israel with the way that people relate to East Africans and the way that people relate to Palestinians. And all you need to do, it's not just an English problem. It's a world problem, and this kind of thing tends to happen when people don't have as much money as they like, and we've seen it happen since the crash. It's intensified because when people don't have all the things that they want and all the things that they think they're due, and a lot of these things are things that they are due. People are due a meal, some clothes, a job, some happiness, some love. Then people start to look at things to blame, and the things that get blamed often are the people who are most vulnerable and the people who have arrived most recently, and that's what we're seeing. Except what we're seeing now with the English football team has been the case for as long as I can remember, and it's not something actually that is just to do with recessions and crashes, but to do with how English people have perceived themselves for hundreds of years, since even long before George Canning said every nation for us itself and God for us all. England has had the UK has had this policy of splendid isolation, and it permeates. People, like empire is about dominating other people, and if you look through English society today, you still see celebrations of empire. You see a royal family whose wealth is built significantly on the slave trade. You see all the deference and forelock tugging. You see phrases like blue blood. What does blue blood mean? Blue blood means being able to see someone's veins through the whiteness, the pale whiteness of their skin. We see this stuff everywhere. We see vestiges of slavery everywhere. We see vestiges of racism everywhere. When we look at the media, we see who has the jobs in the media, who has the jobs in the government, who has the jobs in the financial services. We see reflections of racism not only everywhere in our society, but celebrated through the institutions of our society. So when we look at what goes on when people go abroad supporting the English football team, and football is it's a conflict. It's an inherently intense kind of conflict, and that's one of the reasons we love it. In its purest form, it's the ability to enjoy emotions that are generally not so good in polite society in a safe environment. But what we see often, and what we're seeing here, is the crossing over of that kind of conflict, of that aggression, into things that actually matter, like migration and national identity and discrimination. And that's an enormous problem, not just with football, but with our society. And it would be good if everyone could just stop being dickheads and be nice to each other, please.
Yeah, 100%. One last point, and I know you need to go. That's why I'm actually delighted that it's Raheem Sterling doing the goal scoring, and that's why this England team, these players, are actually far easier, I would suggest, for most people to get behind who think the way and who understand the points that you just made. It is a team who are made up from a disparate ethnic profile. It is a team who is truly representative of a bunch of people who have come from all around the world to make their homes in England generations ago, centuries ago, whatever it is. It's not a team of blue bloods. And so therefore that must really stick in the craw of those dickheads.
And I don't even know if it does. Sometimes you wonder if people have even made the connection, but I agree 100%. This England team is a beautiful thing, and I say that as someone who, England aren't my team. But I look at that England team and they make me feel something more than all the other England teams, and actually, it's not just a race thing, although it is 100% a race thing. And this is something I guess that's particularly important to me. I'm married to a Ghanaian, we've got a biracial daughter. So I think about these things a lot, and I see the way that these things encroach into not just into the lives of the people that are closest to me a lot. And it's so much more than I could possibly have imagined when I was going about my business before this was in my family. And but it's also I think what we see with this New England team is different expressions of masculinity. Because England teams past, the kind of English heroes were Terry Butcher, Brian Robson, who weren't, it's not just the fact that they were white, it's the fact that they had this particular expression of what it meant to be a man. And I think that we're seeing something really different in this current English team. And what we saw, what was seen in Sevilla this week was the kind of old expressions of masculinity. Being a man is being hard and being aggressive and being violent. But in this English team, we don't really see players like that. And I mean, it's nice, obviously, we still enjoy it. It's still an amazing element of football. Like, clearly the highlight of England's game against Sevilla was Eric Dyer's tackle on Sergio Ramos. And we still love all of that stuff. And that stuff still has a place in football, but football's not all about that, and masculinity isn't all about that. There's no set way to be a man, because there's no set way to be a human being. You just have to be likeable and nice to people. And that's what we see a lot of in this English team that is exemplified in the main by Gareth Southgate. And that's something that the people that follow the England team would do well to pay attention to and learn from and get behind.
Daniel, great stuff. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
See you again.
Well, that's pretty thought-provoking.
Yeah, it's unreal stuff there. Like, he's so true. Like, I'm sure we'll have that discussion with Daniel again in the future. The one thing I do wonder is if we're at a point in English football fandom where it's at its most exclusive, where you do have to be, as Jack Pitt-Brooke puts it in that piece that Daniel Harris mentions, where you do have to be somebody who has that D-Day mentality when they go on tour, put the flags up, down 10 pints, chant no surrender, kind of get your bond going as a result of a mutual hatred for Muslims, whatever it may be. I wonder, are we at the most ferocious point of that? Like, is this the way English football fans have always been? There's always been elements of it, but I do wonder if this is as bad as it's ever been. Like, he mentions the economic crash there, and as I say, Jack Pitt-Brooke mentions D-Day. Like, I do wonder, are we at sort of post-Great Depression levels of hatred when it comes to this particular group of people who go and follow England abroad?
I don't think, so the 80s was a pretty grim period when the skinheads were there and the neo-Nazis were kind of being born. And like, as far as I know, that's when the no surrender chants and like a bunch of other racist stuff was intermingled in it. And then football obviously goes through its post-Italia 90 boom and becomes far more family friendly, and they add a bunch of stewards and everybody sits down at the grounds, and it becomes far more middle class. And it seems to have been policed differently rather than the class of the people changing. So, you know, there were banning orders preventing people who had any propensity to cause trouble as part of the England fans. They would have been stopped at ports and airports heading to away matches. Now it seems like they don't bother stopping people, or maybe those people are actually just football fans who go away and become mobs. I don't know. It's hard to tell. I think that what you're seeing, certainly post-Brexit, is that there's a far more organised strain, that there's a more pronounced willingness for the fans to come out and say, yeah, I am a blue blood. Look at my veins. Look, you can see my veins in a way that there wouldn't have been before. That there's a carelessness about the perception of them being racist. They're like, yeah, of course I'm a racist. This is my team. This is how I identify myself. So,
the age profile is interesting. That people who have absolutely no idea what it really means when people start chanting no surrender, well, they probably have an idea what it means, but they certainly have no first-hand memory. People younger than myself are, as Jack Pitt-Brooke puts it in his piece, are front and centre when it comes to this. I didn't realise as well that chanting no surrender in the middle of God Save the Queen is now a thing. It's probably always been a thing, and maybe I'm just coming to this late, but he says that the chants of no surrender are as audible as the words of the national anthem at this point if you go to a football match in a stadium away from home involving England.
So it's the away fans.
Well, like, that's where they become mobilised, isn't it? Yeah. Like, it isn't that noticeable in Wembley, I'd imagine.
Yeah, so that's all. Happy days. A bit grim. Very
grim. Very, 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 very grim. But at least at least there wasn't as much furniture thrown in Seville at the weekend as there was in...
There was definitely some chairs. They were sitting on those chairs, but I assume they end up getting thrown through the windows. The video that we were streaming there.
Well, that's the real act of defiance. You've got that urge to throw a chair at a person who's not from the same country as you, but instead you sit in it and you just shout your racist absurdities at them instead. It's a far better course of action and a peaceful one at that.
Was that Dave Chappelle last night?
Were you at it, yeah?
Treacy Arena. And there's a question and answer session at the end, and somebody shouts up, "What do you think of Kanye?" It was the first question, and he was like, "Oh, look, Kanye's bipolar, and under those lights, he's being paraded around like a circus animal, and I think that he was in the middle of a bipolar episode." And then somebody asked him to explain about that, and he told the story of Jack Johnson, who was the first black heavyweight champion of the world. This is like 1910, 1912, around that period of time, when black men were being lynched for having relationships with white women, and Jack Johnson had to troll the then heavyweight champion of the world. According to Dave Chappelle anyway, I haven't done any secondary reading to back this up, but I assume he knows exactly what he's talking about because he had the recall as part of an amazing impromptu story. Johnson travelled the world to the then heavyweight champion and would kind of pop out of the crowd and go, "Oh, well, hey champ, I wouldn't mind giving you a licking." Like this kind of very articulate, beautiful, tall, handsome man stepping out of the crowd and annoying Conor McGregoring, the heavyweight champion of the world, all the way down to Australia, until eventually he gets the opportunity to fight for the heavyweight champion of the world. And because nobody would fight black fighters at that stage, they were all like, the white heavyweight champion of the world would not fight a black fighter because the black fighter was beneath him. Until eventually he gets goaded so much that he has to fight Johnson. Johnson wins, takes a white woman home that night, ostentatiously, and then the next day, there's this kind of sense of, well, this is amazing. But also apparently the next day there was mass, fairly negative reaction on a local level across the United States for black people to the fact that there was now a black heavyweight champion of the world. And they were like, well, look, it's okay, Jack Johnson's going to be a representative for us and help us to make forward progress. And Jack Johnson wouldn't fight any black fighters because he was now the heavyweight champion of the world, so he didn't have to do that. And the point that Chappelle was making about Kanye was he wants to just be a rich person as opposed to a rich black person, which is exactly what O.J. Simpson's point was. I'm not black, I'm O.J. And that was the sense that all you've got to do is get rich to escape what you're doing. And it's that sense that
I wonder, is there less...
It's the privilege, right? It's the privilege of the white sports person that they never get asked. So Aaron Rodgers never gets asked, why aren't you kneeling? Oh yeah, Kaepernick, fair play to him. But it's not a rolling thing. Why are you not standing up for the oppression of minorities in your own country? And it's true.
They're the ones with the most power at their hands. I wonder, is there a nugget truth in that, or something you can take from that in how we look at the England fans and the England team? You mentioned Raheem Sterling there. Say, how did white America view Jack Johnson? How did white America view OJ? I think is probably more apt. Well, one of their own, because he's similarly rich. And I wonder if the no surrender lads in Seville the other night, do they view Raheem Sterling in a similar way, or has he stepped out of his lane, to use that terrible phrase?
An excellent point from Digger, which I've just lost. Here it is, yeah. So Graham Taylor tells that story about the John Barnes goal against Brazil, chanting racist terms to him on the plane on the way home while they cheered his famous goal. Did they even realise the hypocrisy? I don't know if you remember this story. So one of the best goals in English football history is scored in the Maracana. England beat Brazil by 1-0. John Barnes scores the goal, finally living up to all the hype, and then he gets racially abused by not the English Defence League, whatever the Combat 18 equivalent was, who were on the plane. They abuse this player who's just done this amazing thing for the country that they purport to support. It's grim. And happy Thursday morning to all of you out there.
Chappelle was good otherwise?
Yeah.
Jon Stewart as well, right?
And Michelle Wolf. So Michelle Wolf came out and did 20 minutes. Jon Stewart did about 40 minutes. Chappelle did about an hour, and then the three of them did a 40-minute Q&A at the end.
You got your money's worth.
Yeah, it was about 3 hours. Chappelle is a genius. Clearly, I don't necessarily agree with all of his viewpoints, but that's the point of comedy, right? It's you're supposed to go, no, I don't agree with that, but you're a funny bastard, so you can get away with it. They were obviously having a good time. Jon Stewart was at the Ireland game. The Ireland-Wales game.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why did he do that to himself?
He had a guy sitting behind him who apparently all he said about the whole game was, "Oh, for fuck's sake." He's like, who's that player? What's that player? Oh, for fuck's sake. He does a really bad Irish accent. Oh, for fuck's sake. But yeah. I mean, imagine, come to Ireland, watch a football match. Don't go to that one. Right, are we doing Owen Cadigan next? Doing Vodafone next, and then Owen Cadigan. So I will tell you exactly what the opportunity is for you. You can sit here, do this job. It's really easy. All you need is a week's training, and we're going to give it to you courtesy of our friends at Vodafone X. We've teamed up with Vodafone X to fuel your passion for sport by giving you the chance to join Team Off the Ball for a week. You can live Owen's life, wear his clothes, sleep in his bed, drink his pints. That's it, really.
Well, you won't have the pints, but you can take everything else.
If that wasn't enough, you'll also receive an iPhone 8 with a year's subscription to Vodafone X, giving you access to 7 dedicated Sky Sports channels. This is a brilliant prize if you're a student. All you need is a valid student ID. And to enter the competition, submit your demo tape and details to offtheball.com/Vodafone X. If Snapchat or Instagram or your thing in particular, we'd like to hear from you. Now, Owen Cadigan is obviously a long-standing Cork superstar. Here he is chatting with Will O'Callaghan at the launch of Chill.ie's sponsorship of the Cork GAA jersey.
The games, especially here, I think the standout game would have been the Limerick game, even though we didn't win it down here in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. You know, it was a Saturday evening, it was a full house. You could get a massive, I suppose, feel of the energy from the crowd, and you know, I think that the supporters, it was put across from everyone, from a hurling context, like what a championship it's been, you know, and it was no different for the players. You know, it was very, very small margins between all other counties, and you know, Limerick were the crowd that came out on top, so you can be sure that every other county are going to be feeling that, you know, a small improvement on their side of things, and everyone can be fighting again for the stake next year. I think it was a point or two. The margins were so fine this year. You go back to the Tip and Clare game, you know, hit the butt of a post, next thing Clare go on and get a goal. You take our own semi-final, you can take Galway again and Clare. The margins are so small, and you know, the intensity of the game and the standards that the players are bringing across the board are incredible, you know, and it's a credit to the people that are training them. It's also a credit to every player in every county, you know, what they're putting themselves through to be the best, and you know, we're no different here in Cork.
You guys have Limerick and Tipperary on the first 2 weekends of Munster next year. You lose those 2 games, you could be behind the 8 ball very quickly.
That's exactly it, you know. There's a challenge, and it's, as you described it, as nearly being dangerous, you know, and there's a fierce risk, but it's also extremely rewarding to put yourself into that scenario and go out and play against the best teams, particularly in Munster and in Ireland. So, you know, you look at those Munster teams, there's new management coming into 2 of those teams that were knocked out very early. They're going to come with a freshness, and you know, hopefully from our own point of view, we will have learned a huge amount from last year or this year, and you know, still be thereabouts.
I think it's going to be the most cutthroat provincial championship next year. Good luck getting ready for the league. Enjoy the winter off as much as you get to enjoy, and the best luck in 2019.
Thanks very much.
Owen Cadigan there at the launch of Chill.ie's sponsorship of the Cork GAA jerseys, the rollover to next season. Now, Darren, how are you?
Good morning, Ger.
What's the crack?
Not much, how are you?
All right.
Good news though.
Which bit?
Declan Rice.
Oh yeah?
He might still want an Ireland jersey.
Ah, no.
He's been told he has until Christmas by
You're
Martin
teasing us
O'Neill
here, Darren.
to decide
like
whether
this.
or not he wants an Ireland jersey or an England jersey from Santa Claus. He has stressed the importance of giving the London-born 19-year-old time to reach a decision. Rice has won 3 caps for Ireland but skipped the last 2 international windows. O'Neill has not spoken to the Londoner since naming the provisional squad for the doubleheader against Denmark and Wales.
What is a suitable bet for us to make now? That's like
That he's gone, he's finished.
that. What can we wager here that would be like some kind of reasonable forfeit? I think there is not a hope in hell that Declan Rice is playing for Ireland. I think that this is all story management, partly on his part, partly on the part of the FAI. Now Martin O'Neill, we're talking about this instead of like the Republic of Ireland are pointless.
We'll get to that. That's coming.
Right.
I think the worst thing you can possibly do in this life is disappoint your dad and your family. And that's what Declan Rice is. That's the thing that stopped
This is a good point.
That's
You're
the
making
thing
a good point here.
That stopped him from doing it.
I know, but like...
That's literally the only barrier to
I know,
him.
but
An
Dad, here's a
English-born
wheelbarrow
guy.
of cash. Here's a giant wheelbarrow, a gold-plated... I'll give you a gold shitter. You can have the same toilet as Donald Trump. What do you want, Dad?
If it was that easy, he would have done it by now. I'd say the guy is conflicted.
I'd say it's been done, and he's just, like... They've got to get all that documentation ready in the background. The lawyers are drawing up contracts. He's like, can I delete my Twitter? What would, like...
Maybe Declan Rice is looking at the behaviour of England fans this week and says, do you know what? I much prefer Ireland football fans.
We should tweet him. We should just tweet him, here, these are your lads.
If you want to avoid getting thrown, if you want to avoid plastic chairs getting stuck in your head, please come play for Ireland instead of England.
Yeah, and then the England fans could tweet him the Conor McGregor.
The Republic of Ireland are still pointless in the Nations League.
I mean, McGregor fans, they haven't got enough shit for what they were up to in Vegas. They haven't. They deserve far more shit. Like, we're sitting here...
And the worst of them weren't even allowed in the country.
We're sitting here pontificating about the England fans, and we are, like, in no glass house to be throwing stones.
Did you ever see, what's the television show called? Is it Ultimate Fighter or Ultimate Warrior? The show on Bravo, where they created these sort of impossible matchups. So a samurai fighter up against an IRA representative or something like that. They would create these sort of scenarios to see who would actually win. I wonder if we could do something like the England football hooligan versus the Conor McGregor fan.
We could, yeah, we totally could.
See who would win. I don't know.
$9.99 pay-per-view. This
I
is the best idea you've ever had.
Every episode of that looked like it cost like $4 million, but I'm sure we could raise that for the sake of pure weird humanity.
The winner gets a border in the sea or a border permanently in the 6 counties, right? That's the...
Declan Rice. They get to choose who Declan Rice gets to play for.
The Ireland boss, Martin O'Neill, that's one of a number of quotes. He's told the Mirror that he wants an answer by Christmas, but he is likely to meet Rice and his father again before then to actually get an answer in person. He remains confident he can stop the rot, quoted reaffirming his belief that Ireland will qualify for Euro 2020. When asked why he was so sure, he said, "Because I'm that good." O'Neill in danger, though, of having the lowest win ratio among Irish managers in the last 30 years. He slipped behind Mick McCarthy, Brian Kerr, Jack Charlton and Giovanni Trapattoni in terms of win ratios. We put them on screen for you now. There they are. Brian Kerr, 33 games, 55% win ratio. He's the best there. Then Charlton, McCarthy, Trapattoni. Stan, 17 games, 35% win ratio. Martin O'Neill, in his 53 games, he's won 35% of those matchups.
Jesus. That's pretty stark.
It is pretty stark. He has had more games, so it kind of cooks the numbers a little bit. But he is likely, at some stage, you would imagine, if he lasts for a couple of more months, to actually slip behind Stan in that ranking.
I mean, that's the clickbait headline, isn't it? Worse than Stan.
We'll save that for a couple of weeks. Meanwhile, Peamount United will face Wexford Youths in this season's FAI Women's Cup final. Wexford recorded a 1-0 win over last season's beaten finalists UCD Waves at Ferry Carrick Park last night. Peamount booked their place in the Aviva Stadium showpiece with a 2-1 victory over Shelbourne at Tolka Park. Well, Zlatan Ibrahimovic believes critics of the Manchester United manager Jose Mourinho are just jealous of his success. The Swedish striker played under Jose at Inter Milan and at Old Trafford and believes he will silence his critics if the club give him enough time. United have won 4 of their 8 games in the Premier League so far this season. They're 8th in the table ahead of the resumption of the international break. Ibrahimovic has launched an impassioned defence of Mourinho, claiming he's being unfairly treated.
Everybody criticizes Mourinho. And I don't think it's because of the results. It's because of the character, because of the way he is. And I see myself also a little bit in that situation because we have a vision, we have our confidence, we are ourselves, we believe in what we do, and we do it until the end. And that is what is going on there. Some critics, I feel personal. Some critics is exaggerating. Some because of the one he is. Other ones is jealousy and that, but Mourinho just has to keep being himself, stand up for what he's doing, stand up for who he is, and continue. And don't change for nobody. And I am exactly the same. I don't change for nobody. So everybody out there that think they're perfect, they're the biggest problem out there.
So, in the same way that the Saudi Arabia rumours swept the internet, the Zlatan to return to Manchester United rumours have swept the internet, right?
Yeah.
Is this a thing?
Well, anything can be a thing.
You just made it a thing right now.
I heard that it says here on Twitter, on the internet.
2 takeaways, Mon worse than Stan and Zlatan to United.
In fact, it's actually been corroborated by some Twitter account called @ZlatanLover_69.
Nice.
Spotted at a deli somewhere in Manchester. Leinster back on the training pitch later. They continue their preparations for the Heineken Champions Cup clash with Toulouse on Sunday. The reigning champions made an impressive start in a 52-3 demolition of Wasps last weekend. The top 14 side had just 2 points to spare, but they did overcome Bath in the end. Devon Toner reckons Toulouse's reputation means Leinster can't take them lightly.
They were obviously a pretty big superpower in Europe. Obviously, when I was growing up, when I was 18, 19, 20, they were obviously the best team in Europe. And I suppose these things are kind of cyclical. Do you know what I mean? So that they're on their way back up again. Like they've been better this year than they have been over the last couple of years combined, to be honest. So to us, it's going to be a big test over there. They're a team that I haven't played against. I think I was on the bench against them maybe once, but we didn't get on. So I'm looking forward to hopefully get a chance to run out against them. So to us, it's just another chance to try and nail another performance and trying to get a win away in France, which is always tough to do.
Ireland's Dervla Rooney celebrating this morning. She's claimed a bronze medal at the Youth Olympics in Argentina. The lead from fighter beat New Zealand's Tay Shelford Edmonds in Buenos Aires to secure that medal. Rooney's win maintains Irish boxing's solid record of coming home with a medal at every Youth Olympics. Ryan Burnett won gold in 2010. Ciara Ginty and Michael Gallagher claimed silver and bronze respectively in 2014. Well, Floyd Mayweather says a boxing match against the undefeated UFC champion Khabib Nurmagomedov is happening. Mayweather retired from boxing undefeated last summer. Conor McGregor, the American,
wake me up when this shit's over.
The American had been linked with a comeback against Manny Pacquiao in recent months, but instead he has told TMZ that he wants to go one-on-one with the Russian instead.
They should do it.
Jerry, you'd get more into this than anyone if it happened.
No.
You'd be up for it.
Dave Chappelle made the point last night.
Will be your cultural reference bank for next month.
Somebody shouted out about McGregor Mayweather, and he was like, "Yeah, so you've seen UFC and you've seen like there's like a punch in the face every round, but in over 36 minutes there's like 500 punches in the face. You've been punched in the face, right? That's the difference." It's like, it's a fair point.
I was actually...
That was some racist shit. You guys believing that Conor McGregor could beat out Floyd Mayweather was basically his point.
I got stuck in a YouTube wormhole yesterday, upon which I finished with Joe Rogan arguing some boxing promoter back in like 2004 on ESPN about this new sport called the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and I was going to take over boxing. And the boxing promoter was like, your sport is brutal. And Joe Rogan was like, well, you know, it's the true art of fighting. Boxing is just fighting with your hands. And the boxing promoter was just stunned silent. And it's like, there was actually...
Who was the promoter, do you remember?
I can't remember. He had some sort of Italian surname. But like, he didn't really... He's certainly not a big player now because I don't recognise him. But he actually... There was something a little bit prophetic about what Rogan said. He was like... we're going to talk about Oscar De La Hoya, we're going to talk about Floyd Mayweather, and he mentions one other fighter who's clearly got faded into anonymity now, but he's like, these are going to be the last three boxers we talk about. The next boxer that comes along, they are not going to be superstars. The UFC fighter is going to become the next superstar.
Canelo, $365 million. That's the wages of drug cheating are $365 million. So get those drugs into you kids if you want to be a boxer. That's the lesson you're learning today, right?
And DAZN is the new thing. They're
good pronunciation. I saw it written down last week and couldn't remember what it was.
Yeah,
it's like a streaming service, is it?
Yeah.
And like apparently Canelo's fights aren't going to be pay-per-view. It's just like a $9.99 a month subscription, much like Spotify, for example. Like I would pay that if I'm in the States, and I've got a couple of other fights as well on DAZN every month.
Makes more sense. Last story I have for you. Dangerous weather has delayed the start of the Andalusia Masters in Valderrama. Sergio Garcia facing a wait to start the defence of his title. Shane Lowry, Padraig Harrington and Gav Moynihan lead the Irish challenge at that tournament.
And yesterday, I guess the last remaining barrier to Padraig Harrington being the next Ryder Cup captain, Sergio Garcia said, yeah, of course I'd support him if he's going to be the captain. They're all buddies again.
They're cool now. Yeah. They've settled their differences.
Who else can ambush it now?
Nobody. That's it. It is a done deal. Padraig Harrington, Ryder Cup captain. Take that one to the bank.
Do you think we'll ever get to a stage actually where we start poaching Ryder Cup captains from across the water? Wouldn't that be funny?
Tom Watson, your redemption is in Europe.
If Stephen Rochford can get in with the Donegal footballers, then Tiger Woods can come and be captain of Team Europe to try and get another win on American soil. Like it may take a European in 4 years' time to get an American win on European soil. So that might be the next course of action. That's what I want to see.
I mean, it's just never going to happen, though.
You know, you don't need to kill my dreams.
I'm sorry to ruin
like that,
it, but it's just it makes no sense for the competition.
I was kind of hopeful, but let's see. Harrington in 2 years' time for Europe, and then Harrington in 4 years' time for USA. You've heard it here first.
Yeah, I think we can all get behind that. All right, so of course, all of today's show is brought to you in association with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. Check out Screwfix.ie for all of your quality trade product needs. Now, here's Keith Wood on Wednesday Night Rugby talking about Leinster's ruthlessness.
At times they were a bit kind of slow in the first half to get going, and once they got going, the level of attention to detail, which we talk about all the time, but attention to detail when you're going at 1,000,000 miles an hour is very different. So it was a joy to watch. It was a joy to watch the movement of some of the players, the lines, the angles, the skills, the handling, the attitude. I thought Wasps gave up halfway through the second half. The fact of suffering a yellow card and not having enough players in the field. It was the ruthless nature of how Leinster went after that. It was the total game shift, where suddenly, you're down, but there's tries going in left, right and centre. It makes life very difficult if you're not overly happy about being away from home and you're looking down the barrel of a big defeat. And it became a big defeat. It wasn't about Wasps. I think Wasps did kind of give up the ghost, which is pretty poor on the first week of the tournament. But there was a knife. They were gutted with a knife by Leinster. They were never give a sucker an even break is a line that we've often used. That was perfectly shown there. Let's not just beat them. Let's try and put them out of the competition once and for all, because Wasps have an ability to be very dangerous. We didn't see it on Friday. We may not see it again. They were beaten down and bedraggled by the time they finished.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I don't know, now with the suspensions that Toulouse have been handed down, it might be something similar this weekend. There's a chance for Leinster to have another signature away win in Europe where they crushed Toulouse. Anyway, here are the fixtures this weekend. Munster against Gloucester on Saturday afternoon, kicks off at 1 o'clock. That is live on the telly on BT Sport 1. It's also live on the radio on News Talk. Racing against Ulster is Saturday evening at 6:30. That's also live on BT Sport 1. That's Simon Zebo in irrepressible form at the moment. And then on Sunday afternoon at 4:15, it is that game, Toulouse versus Leinster, also live on BT Sport 1, all part of the Air Sport Pack.
It's a shame Jerome Kino wasn't playing, but I think Leinster might have killed him anyway.
It would have been nice to do it while Kino's on the pitch.
It's a shame. It's a shame he's out. When you say there's every possibility that they go and make a signature win again at the weekend, are we not at the stage of expecting that's going to happen? No.
Well, I actually thought the Wasps game was going to be,
at half time you thought it was going to be a contest.
Close enough, but you could see them running up a big score against Toulouse, and I've always been very reluctant to kind of say that type of thing about a team that you're wedded to. It's like, nah. It's not the Irish thing to do, but they could crush Toulouse this weekend. It's
hard to know what sort of knife-related simile to use when comparing Leinster to. Is it like death by 1,000 cuts, or is it like kind of a knife fight and then there's just one humongous lunge near the end and it's just like, oh God, this thing's over? I mean, I think it's a guillotine this weekend, right? It probably is. A couple of quick comments for you. Andy Dunleavy. Hey guys, you upcoming Heineken Roadshow on November 13 looks to be sold out already. Any chance of additional tickets being put up for sale? Thanks, #OTB AM. And Paul Keane wants to know, also on Facebook, will Joe Schmidt experiment or go with our strongest 15 against the All Blacks? I think he's going to be picking the strongest available 23 for that one. I don't think there's going to be much in the way of experimentation at this point, a year out from the World Cup. What's the point? What's the point? I don't see any reason why we would play a second team. In terms of giving away things, the only possibility would be that you want to see what we would look like without Murray and Sexton. Say there's another injury crisis and our top 5 players or 5 of our best players are either injured or suspended. What do you do? I think if you lose Murray and Sexton and we get the All Blacks next year in the World Cup, we're screwed. Simple as that. So there's no point even preparing for that eventuality. You've got to prepare for that eventuality. That's how it works. That's what management is, right? So then this is your chance. I don't think it's going to happen at all. I think that he's going to pick all of the best available players. So we need enough practice with them in the team against the All Blacks is what I'm trying to say. We do. It's true. So yeah, that's what's most likely to happen. Really just flying a kite. So the very latest Off the Wall Roadshow in association with Heineken Rugby Club is going to be live from the Olympia Theatre on Tuesday, November the 13th. Can Ireland repeat the heroics of Soldier Field in Chicago? Were you on that trip to Chicago? We had a good old time. Were you on that trip? I have no idea what that trip was. Did you go to that game? When the All Blacks came to Dublin next month. Yes, it was great. We'll have an all-star lineup of Ireland and All Blacks legends who we'll be revealing over the next few days. Go to offtheball.com for tickets. Tickets are $18.35 including booking fee. You must show proof on the day either by printing tickets
or having them downloaded onto your smartphone. This event is for over 18s only. Visit drinkaware.ie. It's the latest Off the Ball Roadshow in association with the Heineken Rugby Club. Now, lots of comments coming in this morning, and also your paper still to do.
Oh yeah, we haven't gone through the papers. A couple of tabloids to go through, although we will start with the Herald. O'Neill, we will qualify. Irish boss promises Euro 2020 spot despite only one win in 9 games. And the back page of the Irish Daily Mail then is, I'm good at this. O'Neill insists he can qualify for Euro 2020 and Blues best has yet to come, warns Jordan Larmour. Back page of the Irish Daily Star then, it's pretty much Martin O'Neill all the way this morning, as you can imagine. 2020 vision, the big debate, should he stay or should he go? Under fire, O'Neill believes he can still guide Irish to Euros. Kev set for a City return as well here on the back page of the Irish Daily Star. Kevin De Bruyne could be back for Manchester City this weekend. And referee chief Patrick Doherty is hopeful a woman referee will ref an All-Ireland final in his lifetime, but he says it isn't an inevitability. Back page of the Mirror then is, we'll be okay because I'm good. O'Neill insists he can turn results around. While there's an exclusive, the Boot Room Boys, the unseen story of Liverpool's conquering heroes inside in the Mirror this morning. The back page of the Sun then is our worst run since 2007. Fans booing, but don't worry, Martin says we will still qualify because he's good. Finals fantasy.
Oh,
reads,
finals fantasy. There's the Irish Sun have nailed their colours this morning.
Also, there's a very interesting story here in the back of the Sun. Hans, H-A-N-S, off the Rice. No, Declan Rice doesn't have a German grandfather. Declan Rice could be the centre of another tug of war as Premier League clubs battle to fend off a German mega raid on their kids. West Ham's Rice, who could yet choose to play for Ireland or England, and Manchester City's Phil Foden are on Borussia Dortmund's radar. So, and every club in the Bundesliga says this particular story. Every club had a representative present on Tuesday when England's under-17s beat Brazil's youngsters 3-1. One top agent, the Sun says, it is clear that German clubs are targeting the best talent in England. The word is out and the clubs can offer regular football to youngsters who would take years to establish themselves in the Premier League. So Rice at the age of 19 is ripe for picking, I think, if we're going to believe that story. And plenty of more English, like young Sancho, who's doing good stuff for Dortmund at the moment. Could there be more English players going that way? Well, more Irish players would be an idea, is what I would suggest. The Daily Telegraph then is Can pulling plug on £600 million deal for Wembley. And it's the same story as well on the back of the Guardian this morning. No deal. Can calls off divisive £600 million Wembley sale.
I mean, I'm disappointed. Where are they going to play their NFL games now?
In America. Because it's the NFL. It's an American sport.
All right, so let's bring you through some of your comments this morning. Mikhailchenko. Misspelling of Mikhailchenko, but anyway. Keeping him will cost more with fans not turning up to games. It's almost started already. There is a cost-benefit analysis. There is a little sheet somewhere where they're keying in the Excel. Cost 3 million. Number of fans. What's the level of fans? Match day revenue down. Bonus for qualifying. And you're like, can Stephen Kenny get us this? So Martin O'Neill cost plus Stephen Kenny equals this or nothing. Is it better to risk, put your pile all into the middle and go, need to qualify here, lads. Come on. Let's go.
Did the FAI really think that Stephen Kenny would present
a better chance than Martin O'Neill?
Chance?
Or whoever. Big Sam.
Big Sam is an interesting one. Is it worth having Big Sam there if we get close to qualification?
One game in Dublin. Just one game in Dublin.
You just want to see Big Sam manage one game in Dublin?
No, I want to see Ireland play a European Championship game in Dublin.
Yeah.
Come on, it's European Championship. It's never going to happen again. They're going to go away from this model. It'll be like all future European tournaments are going to be held in Germany, France, Italy, and that's it.
I don't think Big Sam qualifies Ireland for the Euros. Whatever you think about his style of play, I don't think he will overachieve to the point where we'll be able to break the top two.
Mike Dornan says maybe it's time to get in the young players and let them play and set a target for the 2022 World Cup to qualify for that. If not Martin O'Neill, who else? Big Sam, not a hope. Hashtag OTB AM. Steve Staunton would get us to the Euros with the new format, says Brian Corrigan, who, if you don't study history, Brian, you're doomed to repeat the mistakes of it. Big Steve Staunton would not get us.
He does have a point. Cyprus are in League C rather than League B this year, so we might have an opportunity. Which would you rather? Qualify for this Euros or qualify guaranteed for the next two World Cups?
World Cups.
Definitely. So
Like,
I've got no problem.
How do you guarantee me that? Well, on you know,
I've got no problem with focusing. For
is there like a 12-year-old Leo Messi who's about to explode, who's Irish?
Yeah, definitely.
There was an Irish Messi kid story, wasn't there? Well, a couple of years back, the 5-year-old who'd gone to Barcelona. I mean, come on, can we just fast track him and get him in the team?
Give him the human growth hormone now.
Come on. Sean Flass says there's nobody to hold any of them accountable. The Irish sporting public are not invested enough in it to care about what the deeper issues are in Irish football, both at FAI, CEO, board level and grassroots. I mean, the grassroots of Irish football doesn't tend to speak as a single voice. You know, it's not like there are the supporters of massive counties who are, you know, it's not quite like the GAA where you can get some bellwethers. Maybe it is, I don't know. Maybe there is, maybe when you're listening to Brian Kerr talk about this stuff and when you're listening to Keith Andrews talk about this stuff, like they are actually the voices of grassroots football. Certainly Brian Kerr, and like they understand exactly what it's like to come through the system. So when they're saying this is a crisis point, maybe that's all we need to get people rallying behind it. Kyle Cooper says, I've been following my beloved national team since the days Liam Toohey was manager, and dear Ger, Owen and all at OTB AM, this is the least talented squad I've ever seen. Hashtag OTB AM. Mark Kavanagh says, 3 million is a lot of money, no doubt, but it shouldn't be the deciding factor as to whether he stays on. His is a results-driven job, and he hasn't got the results. But who to replace him? Wenger in.
Wenger in. He's available for work from January 1st, he says. I wonder is there going to be like an old school Ticketmaster queue outside Wenger's house on January the 1st to try and sign him up. Will John Delaney be waiting outside that villa in Bordeaux? It's like, hello, Mr. Arsene Wenger. Any chance you could just give me an autograph on that dotted line?
Tommy tells me Zach Gilsonan is the Irish Australia wonder kid, and he's how old? 11 or 12. He's at Liverpool now.
Perfect. Just
he could probably qualify for like 12 different countries though.
But like ours is the most important.
I mean, obviously.
I really don't understand anybody who would choose any country over Ireland.
Irish Australian, you can declare for Australia. You're not going to declare for Australia over us at the moment, are you? Although you've got a much better chance of qualifying for World Cups.
You do. You've got. Do you have a better country? Like, is it a nicer place to just play your international football? I wouldn't say so.
Oh, he's 15 now.
Oh, right.
I'm in the team. 16 is totally legit. Get in the team. Come on.
But it's too late for the HGH now. So he's just got to do it all on his own at this point, which is a bit of a shame.
Velton Man says, would the majority of Man United fans object to money coming into the club if they could spend $300 million to buy Neymar? Here's the thing, if you don't object, and that's all you're interested in, you're not actually a fan of the team, you're just an entertainment consumer. That's all you are. Like, you will be watching esports. When that team fails, you will just be watching other people play computer games, because that's all you're doing. If all you're interested in is watching the best players in the world be assembled at whatever cost and whatever price, then you don't care about football. You are just an entertainment consumer.
Is that not already happening?
It is.
Is there not a sort of element of loving your club and therefore joining this arms race that is well underway and that Manchester United themselves have had some part in?
I mean, maybe.
Like, this thing isn't going to turn around. We're not going to go back to this element where the Qatari and...
The 50 plus 1%, that would be a very interesting and not impossible thing to do. I mean, it probably is a little bit hard to do with the stock exchange rules, but I don't know. A lot of stuff is up for grabs at the minute in terms of how the world is run.
But yeah, absolutely. But who does that piss off if FIFA bring in that directive? It pisses off a lot of very rich people and a lot of people who wield a lot of influence.
It's not FIFA, it'd be the British government. So... If Jeremy Corbyn wins the next election and like there's a few key seats around Manchester, Liverpool, South London that they need to win, and they're like, we're going to give ownership of all the football clubs 50%, 50 plus 1 share to the fans. Not impossible to see a scenario where that happens.
As a vote-winning business.
Just as a policy, but which also happens to at the same time win somebody a bunch of votes.
But then suddenly you're sitting down in your house in Manchester during the election campaign. There's a knock on the door. You open it, and standing at the door is representative for a business based out of the United Arab Emirates that also happened to have interest in a very big club in Manchester they're creating thousands and thousands of jobs in terms of construction. Well, I'd read that this is sort of some sort of soft power where they're able to A, run a football club, B, like essentially launch a number of construction projects around Manchester. That was the sort of talk that we'd been hearing.
But like, they're so rich, why do they need to do that? Like, they could just buy construction businesses.
They could do that as well, but does that not lead to, like, basically if you pull the plug of the Dubai-based money out of Manchester?
You're not pulling the plug, right? You're saying that you can have 49%. That's the most you can have, and there will always be fan representatives.
49%?
I mean, probably not.
Probably not.
Like, Red Bull are in Leipzig. They've got the 49% and they completely control the club. So, like,
they do have naming rights.
Yeah. So, I mean, so Leipzig was obviously an odd case in that they went and bought a Division 3 team. So you could see, are you going to see Qatari Airways, Leyton Orient? Qatari Airways, Lowe?
Got a nice ring to it.
I mean, maybe that's what happens.
Leyton Orient won't mind if they're buying Neymar.
But if that club is owned 51% by the fans, then there's at least a veneer of legitimacy to that, or at least the fans can have a say and make decisions.
But the thing is, like, the thing that supports your point is the fact that Real Madrid and Barcelona have structures that are impenetrable to that sort of structure. That is Middle Eastern consortiums or countries buying their clubs, and they still manage to succeed quite well. So,
well, there's shirt sponsorship and there's all sorts of.
But the whole like 49% would actually be a good deal for some of those countries getting involved in Barcelona, Real Madrid. No,
maybe
like, they are sponsors, and I think that's kind of where it begins and ends.
Jim McGuinness, assistant to Stephen Kenny, says Conor Mools. I mean, he probably needs to get a job back in football, and I'm sure there will be one fairly soon.
Is Jim McGuinness being touted for jobs now a joke thing?
I don't know. I mean, that could have been.
Where it's like Wenger out at every sort of and Mayo for Sam. Jim McGuinness in. Is that the latest in this string of memes that we have around Irish sport?
Neil Keegan says, "Oh, you guys are so cute, being so angry with Saudi money taking away your lovely game, lads. It's not a game anymore. It's a business. If the royal family offers the money, all clubs would sell. Football is sick and has been for a long time."
He's right.
It's also exactly what Daniel had said and what we had been saying. So, thanks for repeating back to us what we were saying there, Neil. Good man. Sean Flaherty has a tweet about Noel King's poor record. So we can have a look at this. Replying to Add Off the Ball. In addition to O'Neill Keane, Noel King has been under 21 manager since 2020. 2019, didn't qualify, negative goal difference, trashed by Germany. Didn't qualify 2017, negative goal difference, 11 points off playoff, stuff by
Lithuania.
Okay, Lithuania. Oh, yeah. Right. I was going to say Colombia. That seems odd that we were in the same group with Colombia. I missed that one.
I love flags are right up my alley. So
FARC related? Oh, you're like
flags guy.
All right, put him with Johnny Ward, and we could have a flag and national anthem.
Not an anthem guy.
Wait, he could do the national anthem. We could do the flags.
He'd make a terribly successful table quiz team.
Karaoke duo. Yeah. So the rest of that record there, not particularly good, but a lot of DNQ. Okay, DNQ, neg goal difference, second last 4 points above.
Faroe Islands, yeah.
You just said it. Tommy just said it in his ear. Faroe Islands lost 3 of 4 home games. Didn't qualify, third from 5 teams. And then 2011, Tommy, don't tell him, didn't qualify. Last from 6 behind.
It's Georgia, Armenia and Estonia. So I'm pretty sure it's Armenia in the middle, isn't it? Or is it?
So Georgia is the first one, the Red Cross.
And then Estonia is definitely on the right. In the middle
is Armenia.
Is it Armenia?
Which is the upside down
I'm pretty sure it's Armenia.
Version of
Colombia.
Lithuania.
No, Lithuania's got green in it.
Is that green in the middle?
Yeah, you're going colourblind.
I am a little bit colourblind at this point. Green and blue. I have awful difficulty recycling. What's the difference between a brown and a green bottle? I can never tell.
Oh, bottle bank.
You don't obviously recycle your bottles.
Sometimes.
Come back.
I know.
The earth is burning because of people like you, Owen.
Hold on a minute.
With your complexion, I am amazed that you don't recycle your bottles.
Hold on a minute. I do recycle. That's actually very offensive. I care deeply about the planet. I'm very concerned about the fact that we're all going to be burnt alive in 12 years.
All right. What? You have no problem recycling your green? Am I the only one?
But like, there's a green bin
There is, yeah, but how do you tell the green and brown bottles apart? They look exactly the same.
They don't really, though. Shine them up to a UV light and you'll be fine.
Paul McCabe says, savage stuff from Daniel. Bravo at Daniel Harris. A passionate reflection on Jack Pittbrook's independent piece on football racism. Was practically applauding as I listened in the car on the way down the M6. Article is defo worth reading. Daniel Harris just superb in this morning, says Cormac O'Malley. So we'll actually clip that up and post it on all of our channels, because it was about a 3.5 minute monologue there from Daniel Harris, which was a pretty impressive summation of the shit that we are in at the moment. And obviously not everybody wants to hear that of a morning, but it's probably worth listening to. So we are miles behind where we're supposed to be. That is pretty much all we have time for, apart from the best feature of the week, which is our brand new feature, which is the Tight 5. It's our brand new midweek rugby slot on OTB AM with Off the Ball's Neil Treacy. The Keith Andrews Show is live here across Off the Ball from 12:30 today with Keith, Joe and Gary Breen. Adrian and Owen are back tomorrow morning from 7:45 with Jason Quigley, hopefully fresh from his title defence in Las Vegas. Alan Quinlan's going to join us ahead of the Champions Cup, much more as well. You can watch all of our segments back on the website, offtheball.com/off_the ball/OTBAM for more details. We'll tweet out all those links. But here it is to play us out today, the Tight 5.
Hello there, you're very welcome along to the Tight 5, which is our brand new OTB AM regular segment with Off the Ball's resident rugby nerd, Neil Treacy. Plenty coming up on today's show. As you can probably guess from the sidebar beside me, we've got a menu of things we want to get through from the Heineken Champions Cup, things to look out for, things that we noticed from the last week, and of course with Munster, Ulster and Leinster all in action again this weekend, the focus really relies on them. Here's what we're going to be chatting about today. Scrum Skullduggery is the first thing. Peter O'Mahony may or may not feature in that. Danny Cipriani, we'll be chatting about the man himself, Cipriani, at Gloucester and his face-off with Joey Carberry and Munster as a whole this weekend, and how Cipriani manages to bring in his teammates, especially out wide. The Wing Wizards, that's involved in the Leinster game this weekend. More on that momentarily. And the Ulster Pack. Are there signs? Is there a new dawn in the Scrum and Ulster? They got written off by all corners last season, but there seemed to be some trickle of hope from the front five and beyond for Ulster at the weekend. So we'll get into that a little bit later on. And of course, the weekend picks with our resident rugby nerd, as I say, Neil Treacy. You're okay with that title, right?
I am okay, yeah.
I think in rugby terms...
What type of nerd to be?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's the one sport where if you're a nerd, you're automatically seen as an aficionado.
Yeah.
In any other sport, it would be an aficionado. Let's get right into it. Scrum Skullduggery, Peter O'Mahony, he's been... I don't want to say criticised, but he's certainly been scrutinised in terms of how he's been packing down recently.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, because anytime a flanker in rugby bends the rules a little, they don't get criticised. They do get scrutinised, they don't get criticised.
Particularly the Irish.
Yeah, people love a little bit of it, and I think everyone kind of loves the old dark arts scrum stuff. I don't like that term, to be honest. It's just, I think it's a bit of nonsense. But there is something from the last few weeks what's thrown up. Just a quick little look on what Peter O'Mahony's doing at the scrum, particularly down to his bind, which is proving kind of effective. It is, however, it is an illegal bind, and it's just not being picked up by the refs. Now, looking back, it's been shown that he's actually been doing this all of this season so far. It's only in the last couple of weeks that it's kind of really, people have actually started talking about it. But I did find it strange, particularly last week. There was a lot spoken about it on various media outlets throughout the week, and he continued to do it against Exeter on Saturday at Sandy Park in the opening round of the Heineken Champions Cup, and it just wasn't picked up on at all again. And I just think surely this week, I think he's walking a very thin line there, walking a tightrope, and I think all it takes is for a penalty straight in front of your post last minute of the game for that to be pulled up.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden that's a game over.
So what he's doing is he's binding onto the tight head prop.
Yeah, well, he's doing it either side of the scrum, depending on where he is, whether he's what side of the pitch the scrum is. So yeah, as you can see there in front of us, this is from the game against Leinster there just over a week ago. So as you can see, he's binding. You can see his left arm is in under the leg of Stephen Archer there, and what he's doing it normally, you can see directly beside him with the headband as well. That's Jean Klein. What a flanker normally would be doing is binding over Jean Klein like that, and then resting his shoulder in against his prop. But he's actually just not touching his flanker at all and going straight in underneath Stephen Archer, very much like what a second row does. And I suppose there are pros and cons to it. The pros are he's able to put way more of his power and way more of his weight through the backside of Stephen Archer and get way more power into the scrum and stabilise him a lot better.
Which is important for Archer. It may not be as important on the other side, but this is something that we've kind of all been educated about in the last year or so. Emmett Byrne was in studio talking to us about the raw power of Tyke Furlong in that position, holding up two lads in the scrum.
Yeah.
So if your tight head's got a bit more support behind him, that is a huge help in that position.
Yeah, specifically tight head is the pressure position in the scrum as well. That's, it's often said the tight head is where the money is if you want to be a prop rather than a loose head. But what he's doing there, he's driving through him. The downside to it, as we said, the good part is that he's putting way more power through Stephen Archer. The downside is for Archer himself, while he does have a little bit more support, maybe if he's under pressure from the loose head opposite him, he doesn't really have the same manoeuvrability in his legs if he wants to be dominant himself and start marching through people, because you have another person wrapped around your legs. And just from even past experience myself, propping down the ears, and a few people would have tried binding like that, it just feels a lot more restricted.
Okay.
And also for O'Mahony himself, then normally he would be binding with what is pretty much a loose arm on the back of the second row. You're able to break away from the scrum quite quickly, and that probably is the main reason that they don't want flankers binding in like that on white. They have to specifically be bound to a second row. It's so that they can be bound to a scrum at all times and not breaking away early. But when he's tucked in like that right under his prop, it's probably going to take him another half second, I'd say, to actually break away.
Do Munster tend to go down the open side more than they go down the blind side, aka Peter O'Mahony doesn't really need to get up out of the scrum too quickly because the ball's not coming down his side out of the scrum, or do they mix it up? It's not really.
They'd mix it up, I'd say. Yeah, they would mix it up. But it's just a strange one, and I think that down the line he could be in a bit of trouble because he's doing it. In some cases, the referee's on the other side of the scrum; he's not going to see it. In some cases, as the one there that was taken from, that's actually the ref cam that's looking at the scrum, and you can see it is straight in front of his eyes.
Yeah, that is incredible, actually. I hadn't seen that ref cam footage. As you say, it's only been getting more notoriety because you had the Leinster game, which was massively hyped. And you had, obviously, the huge coverage on BT Sport at the weekend. You mentioned there that it might get picked up eventually. Will the opponents start getting pissed off? Will they start saying to the referee, listen, come on, this guy, what he's doing is illegal?
Yeah, I'm sure at some stage an opponent before the match is going to be speaking to a referee and going, look, can you keep an eye out for what Peter O'Mahony is doing here? We know it's illegal. And, I can get it from a referee's point of view. There are so many probably more important things that he wants to be looking out for in a scrum. There are so many things.
Will the referee usually be looking at the front row when it comes to scrum time?
Yeah, for the most part. He's going to be looking at, are the front rows lining up square and straight? Are they trying to get a shove on early? Where the prop's actually binding themselves? That's probably a more important bind than you would say what the flanker is doing. He's looking at the angles of when they're actually driving in. He's trying to look at the ball as it's going in. So I'd say in a large part maybe what the flanker is doing there probably isn't too high in his list of priorities. And at the same time, I think if they were to bring in a rule where, where flankers are allowed to bind on the prop, then fair enough. But I think when you just have one person doing it and providing that extra little bit of power, and if Munster win a scrum penalty off it, quite rightly, fans of the other team are going to be pretty unhappy if they think that they're getting an extra bit of push, an extra bit of extra drive illegally.
Definitely. If you've got any questions, by the way, you can tweet us at Off The Ball. You can use the hashtag OTBAM if you've got any comments on today's edition. We'll get your questions in next week for Neil if you've got any suggestions for the Type 5. The second topic of conversation in this week's Type 5, it says Danny Cipriani. Talk to us about that. What's the pun in Cipriani? Tell us about his mobility and what he's been doing for Gloucester.
It's just the range of passing.
Okay.
The range of passing completely, and he joined Gloucester from Wasps over the summer, and despite the fact that he's been left out of the England setup, or was at least for the recent training camp, it's just been unbelievable so far. This is from the weekend here, you can see on the screen there, and this is in the build-up to their first try, just before half-time. So you can see there Cipriani, he has the ball, and they're the three options he has. And what he did absolutely unbelievably, we talk about skip passes and all that, but this is just so simple. He got the ball here, and it was like he had a world of time.
Right.
He held his position for about 2 seconds, ball in his hand, didn't do anything, and then just waited for the last moment and put it out to who was there? I think it was Tom Williams there, who was right at the back of that trio.
Okay.
And then he came straight through the middle, pass inside, and you've got a try for Gloucester. And it was just a brilliant use of space. And in fairness, he did have advantage at the time as well, but it was just an absolutely brilliant work try. What we also have though are the more highlight reel stuff like the skip passes. I think this might have been actually his full debut for for Gloucester against Northampton. This is one, I'm sure most people listening to this probably would have seen this try doing the rounds by now. It was just incredible. So they have advantage there and it comes out to him. And he just floats that over the two Northampton players, straight into the hands of Charlie Sharples, who's in under the posts. And I think this type of play is where it could get dangerous for Munster on Saturday, because Munster do probably defend a little bit narrow, quite like what the Irish rugby team would do, so that they would be bringing their wingers in a little bit further field and trusting them then that when the ball goes out wide that they'll have the pace to drift across and cover. But when you have a player like Danny Cipriani that can get the ball out so wide so quickly, I think Gloucester are certainly going to be targeting that, getting the ball to Cipriani and trying to bring in the wingers as quickly as possible.
That's very interesting. Two things that I took from that. The first thing is Munster's line speed. Were Castres slow off the line there? That was allowing Cipriani to get those passes away. Can Munster improve on that?
Yeah, Castres probably were a little bit slower. I'd say defensively Munster probably are. They are looking quite organised at the moment. Like that game against Exeter at the weekend was just absolutely fantastic. The discipline needed in a game like that when Exeter were battering away at them in the first half in particular, and the game management as well, even to drift off slightly from Munster in that first half, was just absolutely amazing. To just use the conditions. I was over there at Sandy Park and it was absolutely howling, the wind was, but it's just a case of keeping the ball in your hands, keeping possession, not kicking it, because the ball's only going to go 10 yards, I'd say, if you were kicking into that breeze. But I think if Munster can target Cipriani and just keep his influence to a minimum, they should be all right.
It seems like that's something that they're going to do pretty well this year, as in looking at that at the weekend and looking at the conditions they had. It was just right up Munster's alley. It was like, right, you've got a strength that we know is your strength, Chiefs, and we're going to make sure that it doesn't play into your hands whatsoever. Now, that might be down to the conditions, in fairness. If it was a calm day in Sandy Park, Exeter might have been able to get their groove going a little bit, but I think Munster have to take great credit for that. The other thing I wanted to ask you about that was in terms of Munster's defence. So it looks like Keith Earls is not going to be available this weekend. Save it's Sweetenham, or save it's going to be Conway. Is Conway on the other wing? He was on the other wing last week?
Yeah, Conway on the other wing.
Yeah, like, are both of those able to handle someone like Sharples, or like if Cipriani does make that pass out to the wing, how well capable are Munster of, I guess, reacting from their narrow position to try and stop that? Do you think that this is something basically that can really attack an Achilles heel for Munster?
Yeah, I don't think defending out wide is a specific weakness for Munster. I just think with the way they actually set up, they do allow space out there, and for the most part they do that because they feel comfortable that they're able to get out and make those tackles last ditch. Like Darren Sweetenham has pace to burn, Andrew Conway is very quick as well, very, very physical. They're both very, very capable defenders. But it's just that maybe on one or two occasions Cipriani can get the ball out there quick enough, and the gap is going to be there. They're not going to be able to get back in time. I definitely wouldn't think it's a weakness for Munster.
Okay.
But it could just take one moment for that ball to get out there at the wrong time, and they could be in a little bit of trouble.
It's going to be fascinating. Another thing that's going to be fascinating is in Toulouse against Leinster this weekend. Wing Wizards, talk to us about these.
I just, obviously we don't know the team selection yet. I don't see any reason why it's not going to be picked like this. So just the prospect of James Lowe against Cheslin Kolbe in Leinster against Toulouse this weekend, I think for any rugby fan, is just absolutely mouth-watering.
Talk to us about Kolbe. You can probably make out from the picture there, he's not the tallest, he's a different type of winger to James Lowe.
Yeah, he's quite short, but just the pace on him is incredible. Would have broken into the South African team this year and has started brilliantly, scored a great intercept try against the All Blacks in that game they won down in the Cake Tin in Wellington. But he's just scored an incredible, well, he didn't score the try, at the weekend, set up a fantastic try for Toulouse at the weekend with two of the most incredible sidesteps I've ever seen in the space of half a second. Got the ball, probably was catching it flat at the out on the wing. Two defenders coming in across to cover him, and just in. Those two defenders flatten their faces on the ground. He sprints down the wing, pass inside, try time.
Class. So we think that these are going to be in the same wing. They'll be up against each other.
Well, yeah. Lowe will be on the left, so Kolbe will be on the right, but facing each other, if you know what I mean.
Brilliant. And there has been some questions, of course, of James Lowe's defence over the last 12 months. Maybe not merited. Is there similar questions over Kolbe? I think that's sometimes a stereotype when you've got kind of a winger who's Who's flashy? I guess if you've got a flashy winger, you naturally say, well, that fella doesn't like to defend.
Yeah, I'm not so sure, like, defensively how good or bad Kolbe would be. He's still quite a young player. He's 22, 23, would have gone to Toulouse last year. But he's, I think Lowe you don't have to be a bad defender to be embarrassed by James Lowe. That's the beauty of him at the moment. He can score tries against anyone. He can score every type of try.
How far are we along the James Lowe trajectory, do you think?
I think there's still a good bit to go.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think, as we pointed out, he probably is a little bit raw, rash defensively, but he more than makes up for it with just off the cuff ability. And he's equally able to stand in and finish off a move specifically as well. But in broken play, he's just incredible. And I just think back to a couple of years ago before he came over here, and when it was announced he was leaving New Zealand to come over to Leinster, there was absolute uproar down under about why are we letting go of this guy.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
That guy's got All Black potential.
Oh yeah, he probably should have been capped by the All Blacks, and it probably shows just the strength and depth they have as well. But they are, at the moment, I say, they are absolutely kicking themselves that they have an uncapped New Zealander up here doing this.
Why don't they just go and get him back? Surely the prospect of Steve Hansen making like when he's up here in the Northern Hemisphere next month, just, meet James Lowe for a coffee and say, James, if there's an All Black jersey with your name in it, you just have to sweep a few sheds and it's yours.
Exactly, yeah, sweep the sheds. But yeah, he seems to be as a personality, he seems like quite a free spirit as well, I think, James Lowe. So it's not necessarily just, come on, we'll give you a good offer, come home. He seems to like the idea of just being somewhere different, doing something new.
As a Munster man, what was your opinion of, I guess... Okay, so as a fellow... I'm not going to deny my bias here. As a fellow Munster fan, I love James Lowe. Watching him over the last 12 months has been great. There's no question about that. Completely fantastic player, as you say, should be an All Black, and maybe one day he will be an All Black. Watching him when suddenly I had my red-tinted glasses on in the Aviva Stadium 2 weeks ago, I was like... Screw you, James Lowe, you're pissing me off. Like he's probably a guy that as Irishmen we all love to get behind when he's playing for Leinster against anybody else. But when he's playing against you, I'd say he's pretty pissing off to play against.
I'd say he's awful to play against. Like, if he's your opposite man on the wing, I'd say it is a nightmare. Because I'd say he's chatting away to you constantly. I'd say he's probably in your ear. And I'd say you just know all you have to do is give him half a yard and he's gone around you.
Yeah, exactly.
And even if you don't give him the half a yard, he might go through you as well.
Well, that's it. Wing Wizards, it's going to be one thing to look out for this weekend. James Lowe against Chelsea and Kolbe. Wade van Niekerk's cousin, Kolbe, is. I found that out from Wikipedia, so I presume that's true. Let's get on to the penultimate thing on our Tide 5, the Ulster Pack. Signs of improvement, I think it's fair to say, from the weekend's action. To be fair, a lot of people would say when you look at the Ulster scrum last year, things couldn't have got much worse, but it seems that there is genuine sign of improvement, not least seeing Rory Best as a potential winger for Ireland.
Yeah, and I think, as we said outside, nothing gets a rugby fan more excited than a front row player kicking the ball or doing some, making a break or something like that. They just... It's like scoring a try. People just go absolutely nuts for it, even if it doesn't work out. But anyway, back to the original point. Like, even the game against Connacht a couple of weeks ago, the Ulster forwards were probably battered. They lost all three of their scrums that they had to put in on. But I just think Dan McFarlane coming in this summer, the last couple of years up front probably is where Ulster probably lacked that bit of grit and that little bit of strength and kind of cohesion. And even though they had John O'Gibbs as head coach for a season, he wasn't really able to put it right up front for them. I think McFarland has a lot of potential to do that, though. He worked absolute wonders with the line-out and the scrum for Connacht when he was there for those years. And I think with a bit of time, there's a lot of potential in there. And I think, they haven't been blowing people away in the forwards or anything, but I just think on a few games this season, you can kind of see the ideas coming in that there's a little bit tighter, a little bit more physical, and not really willing to give up the ground as much. And if you look at the personnel they have up front, like Rory Best, Ian Henderson, they've Kieran Treadwell, Marcel Coetzee, Jordy Murphy, Nick Timoney, Marty Moore now coming in, who actually came off the bench there against Leicester at the weekend and was absolutely brilliant. He shored up the scrum a little bit when they probably weren't as good in the first half. And Sean Reedy as well, another back row. Their back row in particular, like the work that they should be able to get through on the ground is absolutely enormous with the talent they have. But and I think really trust in themselves is a big thing, and that they showed that on Saturday when they had penalties in the first half that they could have kicked. They turned them down, they went to the post, and it didn't work out. They didn't get their tries, although they were mauling it very, very well. Kept possession of the ball very, very well. But then in the second half, they just trusted themselves. They had the patience. They didn't panic. They went in 3-0 down at half time. And then early in the second half, they got their try from Alan O'Connor. And from there, they just looked they looked comfortable to see it out.
Yeah, they were class. There'll be more on Ulster as well throughout the season once we get a bit more of a sense of what their starting pack is going to be. Remember, if you've got any questions, you can tweet us at Off the Ball for next week's Type 5. We're going to finish up with a couple of predictions. So we've got Munster against Gloucester, we've got Racing against Ulster, and we've got Toulouse against Leinster. Who are you calling, Neil?
I'm going to give Munster a home victory, not a bonus point victory. I think maybe win by, probably score 3 tries, win by 10 to 15 points. I think would be a good one for Munster. Ulster, I think unfortunately going away to Racing, despite the win at the weekend, probably is a massive task. I think I might just about give them a losing bonus point, and I think in the grand scheme of things in the pool, they'd be relatively pleased with that to come away from that. And maybe hope then that, you know, the Scarlets mightn't do too well against Leicester. Hope for a Leicester bounce back, and maybe the Scarlets could be out of the running by the time they're meeting the back-to-back games.
Great
but we'll
pool,
see.
though, isn't it?
It's an absolutely cracking pool, absolutely unbelievable. And then lastly, Leinster against Toulouse. A Leinster win, I think.
It's by how many really at this stage?
Yeah, I'm teetering on the bonus point or not, to be honest. I'm not so sure, because Toulouse, they're not quite who they were all those years ago, but they're a bit like Manchester United of now, you know, that they're not quite what they were, but they have the aura about them. Okay. They're Toulouse, you know, they are a massive team, and it's probably worth a few points to them in every match.
And is Cheslin Kolbe the Marcus Rashford or the Anthony Martial of Toulouse?
If you're talking wizardry, yeah, it's hard. There's no one really at Manchester United at the moment who's doing anything comparable, is there?
It'd be an insult to Kolbe to compare him to any.
There's no one at Man United entertaining anybody.
That's very true. That's down to a number of other reasons. There will be plenty of time for football elsewhere, but I think that's pretty much it for the first Type 5. If people want to get in touch with you on Twitter to suggest something for next week, they can tweet you at Neil Treacy. Is that
Neil_Treacy?
Neil_Treacy. That is some Heineken Champions Cup talking points this week. We will chat Connacht next week. We promise. That'll be next week on the Type 5.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.